Alright, so today we're going to talk about if it's justified to use animals to perform scientific research use it for human benefits. I'm Lisa.
I'm Ozzy.
I'm Aubrey.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Madeline, and we're going to inform you on why it is absolutely justified to use animals for human benefit.
Background. Why is it complex? Animal testing is different experiments that seeks to control the variables that affect the behavior and biological understudy. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged on how its animals are treated." In 1986, the Scientific Procedures Act was put into place, protecting further suffering of animals in an experiment. These methods included anesthetic overdose, exposure to carbon dioxide gas, dislocation of the neck, destruction of brain by concussion, and destruction of brain by free bullet for hoofed animals only.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the complexity of this graph and how the testing on animals gets to humans. So the first step, what it does is that you look at the animals and look at what we need to do to find the actual vaccine to help the illness that they're going to be treating. And then narrowing the field is where you narrow what animals and what illness you're going to be treating. So you find the illness and then you find the animal that goes with it. And then after you find the animals and you find the illness that you're going to be treating, you go in more depth of research. And then after they find the cure for what the vaccine is going to be, you go to clinical trials. So the phase 1 is with one human that has nothing left to lose. They have a really bad case of cancer where there's the final stage. And after that phase has complete, you go to phase 2 where you go on more on men and women, and it's more people. And after that is successful, you go to phase 3 where it is more complex with more people. And after that has gone by, you get approved. And if something goes wrong in one of those clinical trials, they have to go back and fix it.
Insulin, founded in 1921, blood transfusions, founded in 1818, and penicillin, founded in 1928, all used animals to find the cure. However, all these dates were before 1966, when the Animals Welfare Act was passed, making it completely legal to test on animals.
So, animal testing positively impacts humans by boosting our economy. About 1 billion pounds of pesticide is used each year in the U.S., making for roughly $4 billion in sales. There are about 48,000 different formulations of pesticide registered and approved, which all rely on data drawn from testing these chemicals on animals. And the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, then uses these records to decide whether or not the chemical will be released. And spending and cash flow. Taking care of these animals in mass numbers yields more profit than rather taking care of less animals and selling for the same price. And while the federal government funds these tests for about $14.5 billion, which creates countless jobs supporting the economy. And the drug sales. Research from Professor Kennerly H. Diggs at Princeton explains drugs which require both biomedical research and toxicological testing in their development have annual sales of about $30 billion and contribute to 20,000 jobs. Diggs' findings show how crucial testing has become to our economy. And then this graph shows the procedures and experiments over the years, and although it has dropped, it's still around 3 to 4 million, which is very high, and it's a big part of our economy.
So though there are many benefits to animal testing, there's also a downside. So the United States is one of 2 countries that allows chimpanzees to be tested on in laboratories.
And since we are one of these countries, and as John Locke once stated that if a violent person continues to put violent acts onto others, their personality will escalate as a cruel person. And referring back to the quote by Muhammad Gandhi, that can lead to a cruel nation as well.
John Locke also did a research on the illegal harming of animals during testing. So in 2015 alone, there was over 1 million animals that were used on for testing. That graph shows that about 80% of those animals were guinea pigs, and then around the 5% tile was sheep and cats. So the illegal harming of the animals that goes on during the testing includes drowning of the animal, electrocuting, and the cutting open of the animal while the research is happening. So instead of putting them under with proper medicine, they just keep the animal alive and do the research and cut them open with the animals feeling all of the pain.
So though the downsides of animal testing may seem unethical to one, we justify the use and solidify our claim by following the teachings of philosopher Aristotle, in that he once taught that if we can watch a cheetah eat a deer, then why shouldn't we continue the food chain and utilize animals for our society? Aristotle also affirmed that plants live for animals and animals live for man. We also justify animal testing by recognizing that animals possess no will or moral values, and that since we seek to better our society, and since we are given animals, we should use them as instruments, and we should apply modernism, which is a type of approach when using animals that teaches us that in order to move forward in our society, we should use them as instruments. Additionally, philosopher St. Thomas has taught us that since animals cannot fully direct action and reasoning as strongly as humans, we should mostly extend concern towards humans to better our society to the best it can be.
So going off what Madeline said, using animals helps justify our claim because, according to animalresearch.info, we can use animals as models to understand similar diseases that we have. For example, dogs share similar diseases such as cataracts, ulcers, diabetes, and multiple bleeding disorders such as hemophilia, making them perfect subjects to understand these specific diseases. In addition, with advanced technology and genetic development, scientists have been able to make transgenic animals, which would be inserting our own genes into them, making them susceptible to diseases that we have. And by doing so, we've been able to study a much larger variety of diseases.
So other routes to the way that we test animals now are
virtue testing, which is harmlessly taking and using human cells in research, but is not adequate enough to make it through needed testings, and also that uses computerized chips on the tissue itself.
Another route would be microdosing, which is less quantities of medication onto the animal's body, because sometimes it is overdone and the entire animal cannot control any parts of their body. So rather than doing that, maybe giving medicine to only the affected area.
A more humane of taking care of an animal during the research is if they have to go in and do something inside the body of the animal, which includes cutting them open, they should be using proper medicine to put the animal under so they wouldn't have to deal with any of the pain. Also, if the research ends up going wrong and the animal is suffering, the best way is to just put the animal asleep.
How animals have helped.
So for cures, each year 4.5 million Americans survive with a stroke without permanent disability. Also, 2.5 Americans with epilepsy have effective medication to control their seizures through medical trials with animals.
Additionally, animal testing has and will continue to innovate our society and further our technology.
Preventing harm. Though animal testing seems cruel, there have been laws put into place to protect total harm to animals.
Animal testing is necessary to our economy, and without it, many jobs and careers would be lost.
How animals, so most can agree that there's a more humane way of testing on animals, but scientists still have to do what they have to do in order to get the job done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Jordan, how did the group decide to include Ozzy's perspective or lens or conclusions into the overall presentation?
So Ozzy was historical, so that kind of, our whole presentation rooted from that, because by looking at animal testing, we had to understand where it came from. So by looking at the beginning of where it came from, we could understand where it was going and what we needed to include in our presentation to kind of direct what should be done now.
Thank you. Madeline, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Aubrey's findings.
My thinking changed from Aubrey's findings because it taught my lens was philosophical, and I was taught that this is what we've been doing for years and it is the natural and humane way. And Aubrey's lens changed my thinking because she taught that though it is natural, it is unethical because animals have souls too. And so it made me think twice.
Thank you. Lissa, in the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
I feel like we should add like more people's voices in it, and that would be changing because like we could have more of our input taken into place with it, and like also finding more time to do our presentation like outside of school, because I feel like that would help us more in like the long run.
Thanks. Ozzy, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
I was historical and I was against it at first, and once I read all theirs, it kind of like brightened my eyes, because once I read Jordan's and how it helped economy and like how it helped like give so many humans jobs, like it gives me a different perspective on the outcome.
Thanks. And last, Aubrey, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Sure. So having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research? Maybe something that you'd want to pursue more, or something that might be missing that, if addressed, would make you feel even more confident about your conclusion?
Seeing more of what cures we had for like what animals were used and what cures came out of that, I think would have strengthened it, and we could have elaborated more on that to make it more make our statement more clear.
Perfect. Thank you.